Hello, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Today, we're here to discuss the Ontario Elementary School Report Card. We're going to take a closer look inside. My name is Miss Aurora, and I'm an Ontario certified teacher. I'm also a TDSB teacher since, 2004. So let's get started. So, this workshop or presentation will unfold in three parts. In the first part, we'll take a look at the purpose of this presentation. In other words, why it is we're even discussing the report card in the first place. And we'll also share some messages for you from teachers themselves. In the second part, the report card, we'll take a much closer look at the two report cards, those being the progress report and the provincial report, which is also known as the term report. We'll also then look at learning skills and work habits, which are fundamental to your child's academic development. And then part three, our last part, we'll look at parent teacher communication and offer some tips on how to build a strong relationship between home and school. Here we go. Part one, the purpose. Why learn about the report card? So, the simplest reason for why we want to learn about the report card is because the report card itself will help us to improve student learning, your child's learning. It may be important to say early on in this presentation that research studies show that students do perform better in school when their parents or guardians are involved in their education. So coming together for this workshop is one way that we're getting involved in our child's education. And there are, of course, other ways, but this may be one of the easiest ways because the report card is an official document that is sent home 3 times a year, and it creates a wonderful opportunity to connect with the school and your child's teachers. You know, sometimes we need to be reminded of how valued we are, of how important we are. So allow me to share a few messages with you right now from teachers at nearby Thorncliffe Park Public School who are really keen to connect with you as parents of their students, to help build a strong relationship so that your children succeed at school term after term. So, the first message is this: you are the number one teacher in your child's life, and you make the biggest impact. The second message is this: we value and respect the very important role that parents and guardians that you play in the lives of students and in the broader school community. And then we have this message from a fellow teacher. They would like parents to know that a communicative parent teacher relationship, so one where communication lines are open, that relationship is encouraged and valued. It's encouraged and valued. And that comes up again and again in the messages that were shared with me for this workshop. And then there's this quote: the relationship between parents and teachers is incredibly important as it supports students' learning. And this is a theme that you'll hear throughout the presentation, and it's really worth repeating. Personally, I'm grateful to this teacher for stating this and making it clear. But how we go about building that relationship, that's something that we'll probably want to discuss during the question and answer period. Okay, part two, the report card. What does it tell us? Let's find out. And a reminder that you'll find copies of both the term report and progress report circulating in the room. So, a few important dates to keep in mind before we look more closely at the report cards themselves. It's in November that the progress report is sent home. It's in February that the term one report card is sent home. And it's in June, typically at the end of June, that the term two report card is sent home. And another thing to note is that individual school boards, they decide on the exact dates for when these report cards are sent home. So the Toronto District School Board, or TDSB, may have dates that are different from another board that you are familiar with. Okay, let's begin. We'll first take a look at the progress report. And again, there should be a copy in the room. So let's remember, everyone, and you've probably noticed that I like to begin with a general statement or even a quote, that the progress report, it gives us a snapshot. And by snapshot, I mean a general understanding of your child's performance at school up to that date. So in this case, with the progress report, being sent home in November, you are getting a snapshot or general understanding of your child's performance at school from September to the start of November or thereabouts. So, some key points about the progress report. Of course, it's an official document mandated by the Ministry of Education here in Ontario. It's a 2-page document. It's written by teachers, your child's teachers. It emphasizes learning skills and work habits that are really important to setting up your child for success at school and beyond. All subjects are evaluated in the progress report, from language to math to science to social studies. The progress report, as you may or may not know, does not use letter grades. They use indicators instead. And those indicators are the following: progressing very well, progressing well, or progressing with difficulty. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, the progress report, which, as I just mentioned, is sent home in November, it encourages early ongoing communication between parents and teachers, between home and school. So please take advantage of opportunities to meet with your child's teacher in November. So, briefly, let's explain those indicators a little bit, and we can discuss this a little further during the question answer period at the end of this presentation. Progressing very well means that the evidence gathered, so the things that your child has done in the classroom, tests, quizzes, projects, presentations, discussions they participated in, they've been assessed and evaluated by the teacher. And your child has shown or demonstrated that they're doing very well. They are exceeding or going beyond the provincial standard. This would mean that they are operating in the range of, let's say, A minus, AA plus. Now, I want to mention that progressing very well does not mean that your child is achieving beyond their grade level. It means they're achieving beyond the provincial standard. And that standard is captured by progressing well. They're on track. Your child is doing well. They're operating within a B range, B minus, B, B plus. Progressing with difficulty, however, your child, up until that point, is showing that they're having some difficulty in a particular subject area. They're achieving below the provincial standard, so which would be a C range or a D range, C minus, C, C plus, or D minus, D, D plus. And it would be critical to get in touch with your child's teacher. So, to wrap up this section on the progress report, I'd like to share with you another quote, another message shared with me by a Thorncliffe Park teacher, and that is ask questions. So, parents, ask us teachers questions so that you can better understand that snapshot, that general understanding of your child's performance, so that we can learn with each other and from each other throughout the school year. Okay, so let's move on now to the provincial report, also known as the term report. And again, there should be a copy of that report in the room. So, some key points now about the term report or provincial report. It's an official document, just like the progress report. This report, however, is 4 pages long instead of two. It's also prepared by teachers, all the teachers involved in teaching your child. All subjects are evaluated in the term report. Again, learning skills and work habits, which we'll discuss in a few moments, are also evaluated. And in this case, letter grades are used: A, B, C, and D. So let's take a closer look at the letter grades, as well as the letter R and I, and what all of these mean. Now, I will be brief. So you may want to ask me some more questions during the Q&A, but I would also encourage you to speak to your child's teacher to learn more about grades or grading. So A, B, C, D, the letter A means your child is exceeding the provincial standard. They're doing really well. B range, they're doing well. They're meeting the expectations of that particular subject area and within their grade level that's set for them. C, their achievement is below expectations or below the provincial standard. You want to keep a close eye on your child with regard to that particular subject in which they're achieving a C. Likewise with a D, their achievement is well below expectations. You really want to keep a close eye on your child. More than that, you want to talk to your child's teacher and find out ways to help them improve. Letters R and I, they're slightly different. If your child receives an R, which is not common, but it does occur, it means that your child has not demonstrated enough knowledge or skills in that particular subject area. If this were high school, that would mean that they're achieving below a 50% or below a D range. But in elementary schools, we give the letter R. Letter I means there isn't enough evidence. The teacher does not have enough evidence to give your child a grade. This could happen, for example, when a child is absent due to illness. So, some more information about the report card and what it contains. You'll notice in the different subject area sections of the report card, boxes that could be checked off. There's the ESL/ELD box, the IEP box, the French box, and the NA box. So, let's start with the NA box, which simply means not applicable. If that box is checked off, it simply means that that particular subject or subject strand, which is a particular topic within the subject area. So math has multiple strands, language has multiple strands, the arts have multiple strands, science has multiple strands, has not been taught during that particular reporting period. The French box is also easy to explain. It simply means that that particular subject has been taught in the French language. So if the box is checked off, it means that particular subject, say, for example, science or social studies, has been taught in the French language. This would be the case for students in French immersion. Now, the IEP box, the individual education plan, is where I need you to really listen closely. Now, if your child is on an IEP, an individual education plan, whether they have accommodations made or modifications made, you probably already know this and are in touch or should be in touch on a regular basis with your child's homeroom teacher. So if the IEP box is checked off, let's say for science, this would mean that there have been changes made to the science expectations for that particular reporting period. And those changes could mean that, for example, your child is learning one or two expectations, or that there are one or two curriculum expectations, whereas for a student who's not on an IEP, there may be three or four. Again, those details would already be laid out in the individual education plan, and you want to discuss or keep an eye on your child's progress and maintain communication with your child's teacher or teachers. Now, the ESL or ELD box, ESL referring to English as a second language, ELD referring to English language development, so both terms are used interchangeably. If that box is checked off, let's say for math, this would mean that there have been changes made to the math curriculum for your child. So your child may be in grade 5, but in math, the ESL box is checked off, let's say. The expectations are not likely to be grade 5. They may be grade 4, grade 3, grade 2, or grade 1. Now, the thing is, in the comments section, it won't say which specific grade the curriculum expectation is aligned with. This is where it's really important to speak with your homeroom teacher and the ESL teachers who work with your child. Now, we can discuss this and, in fact, the IEP as well during the question answer period or after this presentation, because I'm sure some of you have a few more questions. Okay, so now let's turn our attention to the all important learning skills and work habit. So let's start with a quote, which you've probably noticed I quite like doing. The development of learning skills and work habits needed to succeed in school and in life begins early in a child's life. I think we can all agree. And now we'll take a closer look at what those learning skills are and what those work habits are at your child's school here in Ontario. So these six learning skills, they may already be familiar to you. And of course, you have copies of the report card circulating in the room. They are responsibility, organization, independent work, collaboration, initiative, and self regulation. So let's look at what exactly those all are. But first, let's take a look at the scale. In other words, at how those learning skills, those six learning skills, are evaluated. And again, we can have a more detailed discussion about this during the question answer period. The scale, however, that's used, and it may be familiar to many of you, is E for excellent, G for good, S for satisfactory, and N for needs improvement. Of course, if your child is receiving a satisfactory or an S in a particular learning skill or an N needs improvement, you really want to connect with your child's homeroom teacher to find out why, and also, importantly, how you can help your child to improve for the next reporting period for the future. The E, the G, the S, the N, they mean very specific things. There are key words associated with each scale. So excellent refers to consistency, G to something that's occurring often, S to something that's occurring sometimes, and N or needs improvement to something that's occurring rarely. And by something, I mean that particular learning skill. So in terms of collaboration, working with others, they do that consistently well, or often, or some of the time, or rarely. Again, connecting with your child's homeroom teacher is really important to know more. Okay, so what does it mean to be responsible? Well, I am responsible when, for example, I complete my assignments on time, I take care of the classroom and the broader school, I show care and concern for my classmates. Just those are just a few examples. I am organized when. I'm organized when, for example, I keep my work area tidy. I put my assignments in the correct folder. I keep track of my library books. Again, these are just a few examples to share with you today. I work independently. I work independently when? When I work calmly without distracting others, and that's really important. When I follow instructions to the best of my ability. When I finish my work or assignment or project to the best of my ability. I collaborate, and collaboration is really important in the elementary school classroom. I collaborate when I share my classroom supplies with others, when I complete my share of the work in a group activity or project. And this one's really important when I try to solve problems that may arise in a group activity or group project. Number five, I take initiative. I take initiative when, for example, I have a positive attitude towards learning, especially learning new things. When I try new things on my own, when I take risks, I take risks. When I try to be a leader, when I try to be a leader and help others to learn. And number six, our final learning skill, self regulation. I self regulate when I'm respectful towards others, classmates from other classrooms, and teachers. When I try my best, even when it's hard. when I manage my reactions to situations, meaning I don't overreact, and when I know what helps me to learn better. So we've now come to the last part of the workshop, part three, on parent teacher communication. I sincerely hope that you found parts one and part two helpful and useful. And as we wrap up this workshop, I'll be ending with some more quotes from teachers who want you to know that they value you and they hope that you'll nurture a relationship with them, especially as we head into a new school year in September. I also look forward to the question and answer period at the end of this workshop. So, given just how important it is, that parent teacher relationship, knowing your child's strengths and the next steps, which we include in report cards in every subject specific comment, knowing that will help you to know just how to support your child at home. Now, establishing open lines of communication right at the beginning of the school year is really important. Teachers want to communicate with you. Now, if they haven't, then please don't hesitate to contact them and to connect with them and to start building that relationship. And then there's this quote from one teacher at nearby Thorncliffe Park Public School. I'd like my students' parents to know we are a team. We are a team. Our final quote is one that we saw earlier in this workshop, but it's worth repeating. You are the number one teacher in your child's life, and you will make the biggest impact. And there we have it, folks. Thank you so much. Merci, as they say in French, for attending this workshop or listening to this workshop online. Now for the Q&A.